Hi everyone, Jared here. Time for the market video update. We've had a bit of a decently active morning this morning. The markets are still kind of post non-farm. A little bit of an active UK session. Some details happened there. We saw some good movements and some nice trades from the notes. So congratulations for everyone that made some pips there. And now we've got some good setups. It's been a little bit of a quiet day. As far as the US session goes, it's been decently quiet, but I think that the Asian session should pick up a little bit and we should see some good movement and activity there. Quick little look, we see that the Dow had kind of a mediocre day, nothing too major. S&P just basically flat, about zero for the day. Oil is not really going up, it's just sitting there, and gold's kind of just sitting there. So we've got just kind of a flat-ish market for the moment. Our next thing that we have coming up as far as news goes today on Monday is some Australian home loans. We have some interest rate details for Japan. I don't think we're going to see any kind of surprises there. The yen has weakened very nicely, which is what Japan wants to see. They obviously never really changed their interest rates, and so I think that's going to be a big non-event. However, coming into tomorrow, here's a couple of things that we've got going on. German Zoo, that's a bit of a mover. Press conference from Draghi, that's going to be a mover. Retail sales out of the U.S., also a mover. My numbers and times are off just a little bit because I have forgotten to adjust my calendar for daylight savings, which is a good reminder, everyone, daylight savings. So just try to keep track in the chat what time we're having our live sessions. I've got them posted in 2 time zones, so should be able to kind of get that squared away. Tomorrow we have FOMC statement. That's where the basics come out, how the economy is doing, and so on. And remember, the Fed is still kind of pushing their lighter, different twist on quantitative easing. And so that being the case, this right here will very likely be a big mover, and we'll probably end up seeing some dollar weakness coming out of that. Probably. That's the typical thing that we see. Now, the last FOMC statement, we saw dollar strength, and that's where we saw the big crash on the euro and big moves there. But typically we see that dollar weakness. So just kind of keep that in mind. Remember, as far as our dollar index goes, I'm just keeping my eye on 79, and it's been above and below basically the entire month of February and all the way into March now, above and below. So we're looking for a break of this 79 on into the higher, the 80, 81, 82, and we'll see if that happens. But it's kind of been slow. You can start to see a little bit of a trend line forming right here. So if it's coming off that trend line and making its way higher, then we should see some of these continuations that I'm about to talk about right now. Couple of things I have marked on the chart. 3150 is kind of crucial. 3150 is this area where the euro has continued to visit over and over again. So as 3150 kind of continues to get tested, I think this is going to be a point of momentum. So if we start to see a little bit of upside movement on this 3150, then I think our next stop realistically is probably about 3200. Anything above that might be a little bit of a push, maybe not. So that's kind of where I'm going to be initially aiming for, is 3200. If we start to see this thing getting above some of the highs, which you can see here are really the highest point that it's gotten to is about 3158. So if we see 65 probably, then that should take the pair up into about 3200, giving us about a 35 to potentially 40 pip trade right in there. It should be pretty good. So keep an eye on that. However, also I'm keeping an eye on this 3150. I don't know if I'm going to get into a sell super soon on this one. But if we start to see that move below 3150, then we've got this nice little trend line right here, and we're going to see that trend line break. And there could be a couple of quick pips on that breakout, but what I'm probably going to wait for is for a slightly larger movement, and this could take us into the UK session, potentially into the Asian session, and possibly all the way into the US session. But 3125, I think I will be looking to sell the euro there. 131.25 will be my sell entry to continue down into 13100 and even into these lows of about 130.80, 80 and 85 and so on. So 131.25 should be a good sell area to take this pair lower, but we've just kind of got this momentum area right here, which is 131.50. Above should get a little bit further. Below, we really need to reach 131.25 to get that push and enough confirmation to get a safe run down. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at the moment on the euro dollar. Pound dollar, we have a similar type setup here. The pound dollar 156.50, 60 area, right where you can see there, that's 156.55. If the pound gets above that, then I think we're going to see some probably runs at least to 15700 and potentially to 15750. But the break of this 15650 is very, very important, very crucial. It's the break of this big trend line, it's the bounce off the top of this channel, and it's the break of this very strong, quite old, this is several months back. This takes us all the way into September of last year. This 156.50, very strong support, been there for a while. So the fact that the pair is getting below that should hopefully open up some momentum for some continued downside. We have some long wicks there, which is not very great for momentum, but I think if we can stay below this 156.50, we should see some decent movement. On the smaller time frames, you can see here, even on this 5-minute chart, you can see that it's kind of bottomed out a little bit and it's come up, but it's also topping out here. This is 156. This is just shy of 156.50, and it's starting to kind of get through these trend lines and get through some of this area here. So I'm starting to look. I think if we can get below some of this congestion here, maybe 156.25, right around there as well, that should maybe get us right back into that 15600. So I'm just watching this trend line as it's breaking. I'm watching the pair kind of topping out here and looking for some of that continuation down on the pound dollar. So look, I think the pound dollar's got a little more bearish potential than the euro dollar does right now, but we've just got to watch the levels. We can't guess which way the market's going to go. We're just going to watch the breaks and see how they go. And speaking of the breaks, 156.55 should be important as well. If that breaks, then you can see that we've got a little bit of a short-term kind of trend line in the works here as well. And if we get a break here, then I think we're going to get some possibly some movement. It's a pretty sharp trend line, but that could take this pair considerably, like I said, into about the 15700 and even potentially higher. So if we can stay below 156.55, downtrend continuation. If we get back above that 156.55, then we might see a little bit of a continuation up for 50 and potentially even more pips. But kind of watching that trend line, seeing where that thing goes. But so far, we just got a little bit of a bounce and a continuation up from there. Quick look at the yen pairs, euro yen. Nice little trend line right here, and I'm going to keep an eye on the break of that, somewhere between 156 or 106.50-ish area for the longer term rundown. But likewise for the longer term run, or for a continuation up, at least in these highs here, which we've got 150 or so pips, I think getting above about 108.50 will merit an entry somewhere in this general area. 108.50, 108.60 should help this pair continue up. You can see the 4-hour time frame. We've got some nice breakouts there. Pound yen, same kind of thing. I'm looking a little less for the buy opportunity, although there might be one. And this trend line on the 1-hour chart should be able to kind of take the pair down as well. So we're going to keep our eye on that and see how that whole situation goes. Not really trading those pairs heavily, as you guys know. Aussie dollar, little triple top right here. Nice run down, broken through the low. We've got that low there at about 105. 15-ish area, kind of in that general spot. And we can see that the pair broke through that, and it's now facing the resistance right there. But we've also broken this little trend line here on the 1-hour chart, so that could push the pair higher. I'm just kind of keeping my eyes on it. But I'm also keeping my eyes out for the 5-minute chart, and the fact that it's kind of been coming off these levels, bouncing up the trend lines, consolidated here, and it looks like it's trying to break through that trend line. So I think there might be a couple of pips if we can start to break through. You can kind of see a little bit of a common theme through there. So if we can get through about that 10500, there's probably going to be a few pips, 15 to 25 pips to be had if we get through 10500 on the Aussie dollar. And then a quick little look at gold here. Descending trend line, ascending trend line. 1700 is kind of that momentum area. You can see it's trading about 1699. So a break above that trend line in 1700 will probably take us back into some of these highs here, about 1710.15, right around there. And a break below will probably get us back into the 1780 or 1680s, excuse me. So I think there's at least 100 pips either way once we start getting a little bit of movement from that 1700. So we're going to keep an eye on that. So great setups. I'll have more notes posted in the chat and some trade entries as they come up. And again, we closed out our euro dollar trade this morning, took a couple of pips on that one, and we're just kind of waiting for these markets to get going. So best of luck, guys. We'll see you in the chat.